Hi! In this video we will cover all Shinobi arts from the Shinobi skill tree, plus a couple of other relevant arts that Wolf learns from other sources. This video will be on the shorter side since I'm still recovering from that nasty cold, but we'll have fun anyway. Important note, as with the prosthetic arts, the English text for some of the combat arts and skills is different depending on the menu you're in, Sculptor's Idol skill menu, skill equip menu, or skill tab on the inventory screen. The Japanese is the exact same everywhere, however, the localization can vary quite considerably between the three menus. In this video, I will discuss the localization from the skill tab of the inventory screen. That's where all the screenshots are from. I found that those are more accurate in general and tend to have more of the original text localized, so we'll go with those. There are passive karma skills in the skill tree that we have already discussed in the previous video, so I won't repeat them here. As usual, we'll quickly go over the disclaimers, legend, and sources. If it's not the first time around, feel free to skip ahead. Number 1, use common sense. Please do not assume that I have access to some secret true knowledge. I'm just entertained by reading Sekiro in Japanese. My law theories are just theories, so treat them accordingly. Number 2, I am not a professional translator. I have never worked in localization. Yes, I will say that something is translated poorly and something is not, and it will be my personal point of view. Ultimately, my goal is to give you the information so you can see if the localization was good or not, whether something important was lost or not. My opinion is just that, and I choose to share it. As usual, the transcriptions I give do not follow all academic rules, and I don't think it's necessary. They're just here to represent the pronunciation in case you're curious. All sources I used for this research will be listed in the description box below, along with all the additional information that I referenced throughout the video, so you can read more if you're interested. There you will also find a link to my original blog post if you want to read it through. The original name of this item mirrors that of the prosthetic esoteric text, with the exception of it being about shinobi skills. Shinobi Waza no Densho, a secret book of shinobi skills. The line about the samurai that is the last in the English description is actually the first one in the original. Samurai cannot imitate or mimic these skills. We'll see more of this juxtaposition later. For innermost secrets, the original uses the word gokui, which indeed denotes the innermost secrets of an art or skill. Otherwise, the localization is on point. The trademark of shinobi techniques is fighting with feet off the ground and avoiding detection. When you earn your first skill point, the sculptor remarks that Wolf seems to have his kan back. This word means perception, intuition, or the sixth sense. In English, it was localized as battle sense. Oh, Mikiri Counter. Its original name is just Mikiri, a noun derived from the verb mikiru, to see everything, to see all. You have to see the start of a thrust attack to react quickly and counter it, so the name fits perfectly. The localization just left it as Mikiri, but added counter to specify what it is. The localization is a little bit more exciting than the original text that just says Shinobi Eyes can perceive a thrusting motion or a thrust attack. I also didn't find the Mikiri requires impeccable timing line in the Japanese description. It is true, but there is no corresponding line. A mistake will mean almost certain death. However, if you succeed, won't you be able to instantly kill your opponent? That's how shinobi think. The original elaborates more on shinobi fighting style that is basically high risk, high reward. If you screw up your Mikiri, you will be punished. However, if you succeed, you'll gain a huge advantage, and those are the terms that you should be operating while playing. I remember never ever using thrusting attacks myself throughout the game because they seemed too slow to me, so I kinda just forgot about them. And when I was fighting Owl Father, I accidentally held the button for too long and Wolf did a thrust and got me carried by Owl so hard, I wish I could see my face when that happened. Whirlwind Slash is called exactly that, Senpugiri, Whirlwind Slash. The localization is mostly accurate. It sometimes drops the spinning part of the combat art that the original always keeps. A sharp slashing attack with added spinning force. For slice open a path, the original uses kirinukeru to cut one's way through. Run and slide's original name is a curious compound word kakefuse, which is derived from the verbs kakeru, to run, to dash, and fuseru, to lay face down or to hide. So it's basically run and hide. Sliding is mentioned in the original description, and the picture is straightforward enough, so run and slide is perfect. Throughout the skill tree, the original text often mentions onmitsu, a noun spy that can also act as an adjective secret or clandestine. In the context of Sekiro, it is stealth, as localized by the English localization, and this is somewhat of a skill type despite the fact that it's not in the title. Shinobi Esoteric text mentions it when describing what kind of skills you can learn from the skill tree. So run and slide is an onmitsu skill, an art used for stealth. Vaultover's original name is Kuzushi Uramabashi, literally to move behind an unbalanced opponent, which is a mouthful but also describes the whole skill perfectly. I think Vaultover is a great name for it. So I remember being incredibly confused by Vaultover during my first playthrough because I got it way before I knew anything about ninjutsu techniques, and it seemed just completely useless to me. I kept jumping behind enemies that were already posture broken, trying to figure out what advantage I'm meant to gain from it if I can just kill them from the front. Well, the thing is that the last line from the original description hints at some other skills that may benefit from Vaultover, while the localization does not. Maybe there are also shinobi techniques that require aiming from the back. Without this line, the whole description doesn't make any sense. Why would you go out of your way to get a backstab deathblow on an enemy that can be just killed from the front? The original, however, tells you that there might be some techniques that work only through backstab deathblows. And suddenly, Vaultover starts making sense and honestly becomes kind of exciting, even if you don't have access to any ninjutsu skills at the time. Moving on to midair skills. As I mentioned in the previous video, midair is somewhat of a skill type. This skill's original name is Kuchu Hajiki, literally repelling or deflecting in midair. Some sentence combining happened in this description, but the localization conveys the gist of it quite nicely. This skill, akin to midair prosthetic tools, allows Wolf to use combat arts while in the air. Its original name is literally midair combat arts. There is nothing of note here in the description, everything is pretty straightforward, so let's move on. Anti-air Deathblow is not from the skill tree, but it is a shinobi skill nonetheless. You can purchase the text from Black Hat Badger. The original name of this skill is Taiku Ninsatsu, anti-air shinobi killing or anti-air deathblow, because the word ninsatsu, shinobi murder, has been localized as deathblow. I find to stop cold localization quite amusing. The original uses shitomeru, to bring down or to shoot down. The last line is completely different in the original. It just says that this is one of the shinobi fighting techniques where the feet don't touch the ground, like it does in every other midair skill description. I'm not sure why the localization felt the need to rewrite it. Its original name is Anti-Air Deathblow skill text. There isn't much to discuss really, it just repeats the description of the skill, explaining what kind of technique you can learn from it. If you look closely at the picture, you'll see that it depicts one warrior striking down another. Let's get down to passive abilities of this skill tree. The original name for suppressed presence is Kehai Goroshi, which literally translates to suppressing or killing presence. There is also a phrase Kehai wo korosu that means to erase all traces of something. When describing the skill, the original uses the word osaeru, to control, to suppress, which is not present in the localized version. The last line of this description is actually a smart play on words that was lost in translation. It's necessary for a shinobi to kill their presence as well. From the grammar standpoint, the first part of the sentence acts like somewhat of a requirement for the second part. To be a shinobi, you need to master the skill of suppressing your presence. However, what makes the whole thing a wordplay is the little particle mo, to as well, paired with korosu, to suppress, to hold back, but also to kill. We know that shinobi kill people, the game tells us about it all the time, so their own presence is just one more thing to kill. The same goes for suppressed sound, otogoroshi, suppressing or killing sound. This time the verb osaeru made it into the English localization, but they still added "this is another shinobi technique" part, which is not present in the original. Maybe they felt like there was too much space left. The last line has the exact same structure as the last line of the previous description, only now it's about sound. It's necessary for a shinobi to kill the sound they make as well. Its original name is really straightforward, Shinobi no Me, Shinobi Eyes. The description isn't all that accurate, so let's see what shinobi do to improve their Mikiri Counter. In reality, eyes of a shinobi do not follow only the blade. The sharp edge is frightening, however, do not let your heart be seized by that fear. And the last sentence that was completely lost in translation. See everything without watching. Japanese doesn't really distinguish between to see, to watch, and to look as much as English does, although there is a certain nuance to it. Generally, all these meanings can be conveyed by the verb miru and then translated depending on the context. So Shinobi Eyes skill tells us that Shinobi mastering Mikiri Counter should not rely only on watching the blade while anticipating the thrust, but sharpen their other senses as well. Shinobi Medicine is a subset of 3 passive skills that you learn after defeating certain enemies, 2 chained ogres and the blazing bowl. Their descriptions are identical apart from only one line that gives us more information on how shinobi fight. They are also named the same, Shinobi no Yakushiki, Shinobi Medicinal Knowledge. We discussed the word Yakushiki in detail in the previous video. The unique parts of their names were localized correctly. Those are ranks. Ko, first rank, Otsu, second rank, and Hei, third rank. Since the identical parts are pretty straightforward and were localized correctly, let's look at the unique lines. Shinobi always get wounded. The second line of this paragraph is identical in all 3 descriptions, but for some reason here in rank 1 it was translated slightly differently and placed first, while it most certainly should be last. Thus, the medicinal knowledge is vital. At times, shinobi are drawn to extremely dangerous life or death situations. Shichi can also be translated as nearly certain death. Thus, the medicinal knowledge is vital. Shinobi fight alone and don't rely on others. And that's it. These passive skills elaborate a little more on how shinobi live and fight. Alone, constantly in danger, constantly getting hurt. Rather grim, but such are the shinobi ways. Moving on to Breath of Life, that is comprised of 2 passive skills that allow Wolf to regenerate some HP after a successful Deathblow. There are also Breath of Nature skills, but those are in the Ashina skill tree, and their juxtaposition is kinda interesting, although expected. Both Breath of Life skills share the first 2 paragraphs. There isn't much to discuss really, as the description of the skills is pretty straightforward. Their original name is Inoshi no Kokyu, literally Breath of Life. For an opportunity to breathe, the original uses ikitsugi, a short break, a breather, generally a brief moment of rest. Well, I suppose the Deathblow is the released tension part, so no wonder. Its original name is Inoshi no Kokyu Yo, where Yo is the kanji for sun, light, and also yang, as in yin and yang. For calm the body and mind, the original uses the verb totonoeru, to straighten, to put in order. The last line is really sinister in a way, but again, such are the shinobi ways. Having done that, you're able to kill many more. So this is the second skill in this set. You get it after defeating Orin. Its original name is really easy to guess, Inoshi no Kokyu In, where In is the kanji for shadow and yin. Since the effect of this skill is the same, the unique part of the description just explains to you why you've just learned it, because you've killed a powerful opponent. And finally, we have arrived at the Ogi skill, the essence of the whole shinobi skill tree, and it isn't called Shadowrush in the original. Daishinobi Sashi, stab of a great shinobi. Well, not as catchy as Shadowrush, but it is what it is. The verb sasu means to pierce, to stab, or to thrust, and because the main metaphor for the whole skill description is owl-themed, probably pierce is a better option. The localization skipped the second sentence of the description, possibly for space concerns. This is the heart of the shinobi skills. For the platform, the original actually uses fumidai, stepping stone. Yeah, use your impaled opponent as a stepping stone, they haven't suffered enough humiliation and pain as it is. This is the skill that Owl devised himself, the skill that he uses a lot in the Owl Father boss fight, and since he is the Great Shinobi, which I suppose is a title that only one person can hold at any given moment, his skill is the crown jewel of the Shinobi skill tree. I wonder why he doesn't use Shadowrush during the Great Shinobi boss fight. Probably because he is already too old for soaring high after stepping on an enemy or something. Shinobi Arts were probably not as exciting to read as prosthetic arts, but we still got a couple of interesting names and details. It's been a bit of a breather for me to do during recovery, and now I'm ready to take on more complicated things again. Next up, probably Ashina skill tree. Let's go down the skill tree since we have already covered 2 of them. Don't forget to check the description for relevant links and more reading. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.